the silence before the trap. The void was silent. Only the faint hum of power cores and the slow drift of dust clouds broke the darkness. In the far edge of the Voran system, thousands of alien ships waited in the shadow of a dying star. Each vessel was armed, charged, and hidden among asteroid fields thick enough to confuse any scanner. This was the largest ambush the galaxy had seen in centuries, and the target was humanity. For months, the Voran Pact had planned every detail. They had studied human battle patterns, decoded fleet formations, and built decoys to lure Terran ships into the kill zone. Admiral Talaric, the supreme commander of the Voran fleet, stood before the holomap glowing across the command deck. He could see it all: the false distress beacon placed near the asteroid ring, the human convoy they expected to come rushing to help, the perfect trap. Every alien officer around him believed victory was certain. They had crushed other species before. They believed humans would react like all the rest, predictable, emotional, foolish, but Talaric was not so sure. He had read the human war records, the Terran strategies during the siege of Orion, the counterattacks at Vega Prime. Humans never fought by the book. They adapted faster than any machine. Still, the plan was already set, and orders had come from the Council itself. Strike fast, no mercy. The Admiral took a deep breath as the countdown began. In another part of space, the human fleet approached quietly. Dozens of ships, frigates, destroyers, carriers, moving in formation through the dark void. Their hulls gleamed faintly in the light of distant stars. Inside the Terran flagship, Vigilant Dawn, Captain Reyes stood at the central console, hands folded behind his back. His crew moved efficiently, calm, silent. To anyone watching, they seemed unaware of what awaited them beyond the asteroid field. But Reyes already knew. He had known for weeks. "Are they in position?" Reyes asked softly. "Yes, sir," replied Lieutenant Mira, scanning the holographic radar. "Voran ships are hidden across sectors 9 through 12, just as expected." Reyes gave a quiet nod, his eyes cold but steady. He whispered to his tactical officer, "Activate the Spectre network. No transmissions beyond tight beam." At once, hidden signals rippled across the void. Stealth satellites, cloaked probes, and silent drones all came alive. The humans were not walking into a trap. They were walking toward it, fully aware. On the Voran flagship, Admiral Talaric paced the bridge. Watching the sensors flicker, the human fleet had entered the system. But something felt strange. The humans were not in distress, not confused, not broadcasting emergency codes as predicted. Instead, their movements were deliberate. Too deliberate. "Report!" Talaric barked. "Human fleet entering the engagement zone." A young officer replied, "No deviation, no distress beacons detected." "Strange," Talaric muttered. "They should have detected the false signal by now." He narrowed his eyes, feeling the chill of uncertainty crawl up his neck. In the darkness beyond, the Terran ships continued to advance, their engines dimmed to half power, their sensor arrays shut off to appear vulnerable. But inside each vessel, battle stations were already manned, targeting systems locked and railguns charged. Humanity was not walking blind. They were watching, listening, waiting. Captain Reyes studied the battlefield through a holographic display filled with red Voran markers. He had seen every one of them long before arriving, thanks to deep space reconnaissance units hidden throughout the sector. "Just like we thought," he murmured. "They think we're prey." Reyes smiled faintly. "Let them believe it a little longer." Back on the Voran command bridge, tension grew. The countdown hit 0. "Open fire," Talaric commanded. Thousands of plasma bolts and energy beams erupted from the asteroids, lighting the void with a blinding glow. For a moment, it looked like the stars themselves were exploding. The Voran fleet roared to life, engines flaring as ships lunged forward in perfect coordination. Their ambush had begun, yet to their confusion, the humans didn't panic. They didn't scatter or break formation. They simply shifted position, each movement precise and synchronized. Then, without warning, the darkness around the asteroid belt shimmered. Dozens, no, hundreds, of cloaked Terran warships came online, their hulls glowing faintly blue. 1,000 targeting locks lit up across the void. The hunter had just become the hunted. Talaric froze, disbelief spreading across the bridge. Impossible, he whispered. They couldn't have known. But they did. For weeks, the humans had been watching, mapping every Voran position through quantum signal interceptors. They had waited patiently, pretending ignorance, baiting the Voran into launching their own trap. Now the human fleet surrounded them. Captain Reyes gave a single order. Return fire. The void exploded in thunder, human railguns unleashed, hypervelocity slugs that ripped through enemy shields like paper. Missiles streaked from every direction, followed by ion bursts that fried alien communication arrays. The Voran fleet fell into chaos. Their ambush had turned into a nightmare. Inside Vigilant Dawn, Reyes watched silently as the enemy lines broke apart. Status? He asked. Multiple Voran casualties, Mira replied. They're falling back. Reyes gave a faint nod. Good. Let them run. But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The Voran had more ships hidden somewhere beyond the gas giant, and humanity was ready for them too, because this time they weren't fighting to survive. They were fighting to remind the galaxy of one simple truth. No one ambushes humanity anymore. The eyes of humanity. The battlefield burned like a dying star. Flames and debris drifted across the black sea of space. What was once an ambush had become a storm of human firepower. Alien ships that had waited for hours in silence were now nothing more than glowing wrecks. And yet, even as victory echoed across the comms, Captain Reyes stood calm on the bridge of Vigilant Dawn. His eyes never left the main display. He knew it was far from over. Report, Reyes said softly. Lieutenant Mira's hands moved quickly across the console. Enemy formation broken. Admiral Talaric's flagship not yet engaged. Multiple power signatures detected behind the third moon. Reyes nodded slowly, his voice firm but cold. They're hiding, waiting for us to chase them. He turned to his tactical officer. Deploy the Archangel drones, full silent mode. From the underbelly of the human fleet, hundreds of small drones detached. They drifted soundlessly into the void, invisible to radar and unseen by eyes. Each one carried micro cameras, thermal sensors, and quantum relays. In minutes, the drones began transmitting data to Vigilant Dawn's war room. Holographic images appeared, dozens of Voran cruisers regrouping, their hulls cracked but their weapons still active. They were not retreating. They were reorganizing for another strike. Admiral Talaric's voice filled the command bridge of his ship, the Dominion's pride. Human losses minimal, he growled. Our first wave is gone, but the second is ready. Prepare the heavy cannons. His officers obeyed without hesitation. They believed the humans had been lucky, not superior. They didn't know that every word they said, every signal they sent, was already being monitored. Humanity was listening through the very frequencies the Voran thought were secure. Reyes had cracked their encryption days before the battle began. Mira looked at the data stream and smiled faintly. Sir, their fleet is transmitting tactical orders, unencrypted now due to interference. They're planning a counterstrike in Sector 7. Reyes nodded again, his tone quiet but confident. They still think they can surprise us. He turned toward the comm officer. Signal the Iron Dagger and Aurora Spear. Tell them to position behind the gas giant. We're going to let the aliens think we're blind. The human ships shifted silently through the dark. Using the debris of destroyed vessels as cover, they vanished from sight. Their engines glowed faintly, their hulls cooled by radiation-dampening layers. The humans were ghosts now. Every alien sensor sweep came back clean, showing nothing but static and wreckage. Admiral Talaric grinned when his scanner showed the Terrans had stopped firing. Cowards, he said. Prepare to advance. He didn't realize that the wreckage he saw on his radar was no wreckage at all. Hidden beneath the drifting husks were human drone arrays mimicking destroyed ships. Each array carried guided weapon systems, waiting for the signal. Reyes leaned closer to the holomap. Let them move in, he said softly. Let them come closer. Moments later, the Voran Second Fleet began to advance, Dozens of cruisers gliding forward, plasma turrets ready, the void filled with blue light as their engines flared to life. Inside Dominion's Pride, Talaric raised his hand. Target the human flagship. Full firepower. The massive cannons charged, gathering energy bright enough to light a moon. And just as they were about to fire, Reyes gave the quiet command, "Execute Shadow Protocol." At that moment, the debris field came alive. The destroyed human ships powered up, revealing their hidden strength. From behind the gas giant, the Iron Dagger and Aurora Spear emerged like twin predators. Hundreds of missiles streaked across the void, followed by railgun slugs moving faster than light could reflect. The Voran Second Fleet never stood a chance. Their ships were torn apart before the first cannon could fire. Energy surges erupted through their systems, plasma cores overheated, and explosions chained from one vessel to another. Within minutes, what was meant to be revenge became annihilation. Admiral Talaric gripped his chair, fury shaking his voice. How could they know? How could they see us before we fired? But deep inside, he already knew the truth. The humans were no longer fighting with just strength. They were fighting with eyes that saw everything. Satellites hidden in nearby systems, stealth drones drifting for months, spies in alien communication lines. The humans had turned the art of war into the art of watching. Reyes looked at the final readings as the last alien ship exploded. He said quietly, "That's 2 waves down." Mira turned to him. "And the third, sir?" Reyes looked into the stars where the Voran flagship still hid behind the storming gas giant. "It's waiting for us," he said. A small smile formed on his face. "Good. We've been waiting for them too." The bridge fell silent. Outside, the debris of 2 alien fleets floated like glowing ash. Human ships moved slowly through the wreckage, scanning, rescuing, repairing. Every crew member knew the war was far from over. But one thing was certain. The galaxy's predators had just met the true hunters, Dominion's Pride. The nebula burned behind them like a dying storm. The wrecks of 2 alien fleets drifted quietly in the void, glowing faintly from residual fire. But deep inside the crimson clouds of the gas giant, something enormous began to move. A shadow darker than space itself. The Voran flagship, Dominion's Pride, emerged slowly from the swirling mist. Its hull was the size of a small moon, covered in overlapping plates of living metal that pulsed with blue light. Every alien eye on the battlefield turned toward it with renewed hope. For the Voran, this ship was not just a weapon. It was a god. Admiral Talaric stood tall on his bridge, his voice steady though his fleet lay in ruins. "Human tactics are clever, but now they face the full strength of the Dominion," he said. The ship's reactor hummed louder, releasing waves of energy that rippled through the void. A single shot from the main cannon could vaporize a planet's crust, and every alien soldier aboard believed that no creature, human or otherwise, could withstand its wrath. On the vigilant dawn, Captain Reyes watched the incoming energy surge on his display. He already knew what was coming. The readings were massive, off the charts. "That's their flagship," Mira said, her voice tense. "It's powering the Eclipse cannon." Reyes didn't blink. "Good," he said quietly. "Let's see how long it takes them to realize they're not the only ones with eyes." The human fleet began to shift position, spreading into a wide V formation around the gas giant. Stealth satellites hidden in orbit months earlier activated, relaying data through quantum links. Images and targeting coordinates filled the Terran network in real time. Every weakness in the alien flagship's shield system appeared like red veins across the holomap. Reyes raised his hand slowly. "All ships, load kinetic rounds, pattern 7-3 Alpha, target venting points along their plasma grid." Inside the Dominion's Pride, Talaric gave the order, "Fire." The main cannon ignited, a beam of pure blue-white energy tearing through the nebula. It struck the empty space where the human flagship had been moments before. The explosion lit up half the sector, sending radiation waves across the battlefield. But when the glare faded, the Terran ships were gone. Only silence remained. Then, out of the silence came motion. Hundreds of small signatures appeared all around the Dominion's Pride. human ships rising from the shadows like ghosts from the void. Railguns fired in synchronized bursts, slamming into the flagship's shields from every direction. The impact shook the Voran bridge, lights flickering as power levels dropped by 7%. "Impossible!" shouted an officer. "They predicted our firing path." Talarek's claws gripped the railing, rage and disbelief mixing in his voice. "Counterattack! Target their flagship!" But the humans didn't give them time. Their destroyers darted in and out of range, firing salvos before vanishing behind asteroid cover. Missiles exploded across the alien hull, followed by focused EMP bursts that disrupted communication inside the Vigilant Dawn. Reyes stood calm. "They're losing focus," he said. "They think they're fighting ships, not shadows." The Terrans had turned the entire system into a trap. Ionized particles from the nebula now reflected radar and scanner signals, creating hundreds of ghost images. The Voran sensors couldn't tell which ship was real. Every time they fired, they hit empty space, and every time they missed, the humans struck harder. Admiral Talarek roared, "We are the Dominion. Fire everything." The Dominion's pride unleashed its full arsenal: plasma bolts, torpedoes, and energy flares, lighting the void with unending destruction. For a moment, it looked like the human fleet had been overwhelmed, but then something new appeared in the shadows, a massive shape, sleek and dark, descending from orbit above the battlefield. The Terran dreadnought Erebus, long thought lost in deep space, had arrived. Its engines burned bright, casting white light across the storm. On its hull, the words, "We see you," shimmered faintly. Reyes watched as the Erebus linked into the battle network, its targeting system combining with Vigilant Dawn's AI. "Time to end this," he said. "Lock coordinates, phase railguns, and fire on my mark." In perfect synchronization, the human fleet turned its guns toward the Voran flagship. 5 seconds passed. Then Reyes spoke one word. "Fire." The combined strike ripped through the void like thunder. The Voran shields shattered. Energy cascades erupted across their hull. Talarek's bridge filled with sparks and alarms, his officers screaming as the ship tilted violently. "We've lost stabilizers," one shouted. "Reactor breach." Another cried. The Dominion's pride tried to retreat, engines flaring in panic. But it was already too late. Human missiles followed in precise patterns, targeting vent cores and weak points revealed by the stealth network. Each explosion was surgical, controlled, efficient. And as the great Voran flagship began to break apart, Admiral Talarek stared at the holomap filled with Terran signatures. "They were watching us from the beginning," he whispered. His voice was no longer filled with rage, but fear. On the Vigilant Dawn, Captain Reyes stood quietly as the final explosion illuminated the stars. The bridge remained silent, the crew watching as the enemy's greatest ship became nothing but glowing fragments. "Status?" Reyes asked softly. "Target neutralized, sir," Mira replied. Reyes nodded once. "Then begin recovery operations, and keep your eyes open." He looked out at the void, the blue light of dying plasma reflecting in his eyes. "They're not done yet," he said quietly. "Neither are we." The trap within the trap. The explosion of the Voran flagship faded into the endless dark. The once mighty Dominion's pride was now nothing more than drifting fragments, glowing faintly in the nebula's light. But Captain Reyes did not relax. He stood on the bridge of Vigilant Dawn, eyes fixed on the tactical map still filled with static. He knew this silence was not victory. It was the quiet before the second storm. "Sir," Lieutenant Mira said. "Enemy signals detected. Faint but moving." Reyes nodded slowly. "Show me." Across the display, faint blue markers appeared. More Voran ships, hundreds of them, hidden deep in the gas giant's orbit. "They had another fleet," Mira whispered. Reyes gave a faint smile, calm and almost cold. "Of course they did," he said softly. The Voran never bet everything on one hand. In the distance, space began to shimmer. Massive energy signatures spiked as cloaked warships decloaked one by one. An entire second armada emerged, bigger, stronger, faster. The surviving Voran captains roared across open channels, promising revenge. They had lost their flagship, but they still had the numbers. The galaxy would soon see that humanity's luck had finally run out. But Reyes didn't believe in luck. He turned to his tactical officer. Activate the network, all stations online. Dozens of hidden Terran satellites began to power up, sending waves of coded energy through the void. Invisible fields began to form around the nebula, electric storms weaving silently between asteroids. The trap was unfolding. This was not just a battlefield. It was a weapon. Months before the battle even began, the Terran Navy had deployed experimental field generators across the system. Each device was hidden under asteroid surfaces, disguised as mining equipment. They were linked to a central control core deep within Vigilant Dawn. Together, they formed what the humans called Operation Reversal, a system-wide electromagnetic web capable of turning the environment itself into a death trap. Reyes gave the final order, initiate pulse ignition, and the stars obeyed. The gas clouds around the nebula began to glow. Electric blue veins spread across space, lightning arcing between rock fragments. Every alien sensor flickered and died instantly. The Voran fleet lost navigation, lost radar, lost communication. Their ships floated blind inside a storm they couldn't escape. Inside Dominion's Echo, the new Voran flagship, Admiral Korvac shouted over the alarms. Shields failing. EMP surges across the hull. Communications offline. Power cells burning out. Korvac stared in disbelief as his systems melted one by one. This is impossible, he growled. They couldn't have built this, but they had. The humans had prepared this entire graveyard long before the Voran even arrived. On Vigilant Dawn, the bridge glowed in the storm's light. Reyes stood tall, his voice steady. Target disabled ships, precision strikes only. No waste. Human destroyers moved through the chaos like sharks through deep water. Each shot was controlled, deliberate. The Voran fleet tried to fight back, but their targeting systems were dead. Every missile they launched drifted harmlessly into the glowing storm. Every beam they fired hit nothing but mist. Mira watched the readings, her eyes wide. They're falling apart, sir. They can't even see us anymore. Reyes nodded. Good, he said quietly. He looked out the viewport, watching lightning crawl across the gas clouds. They thought they were hunting us, he said. But this whole place was built for them. A moment later, a massive explosion lit up the nebula as the Voran power cores went critical. Chain reactions spread from ship to ship. Turning the battlefield into a sea of fire, the human fleet pulled back to safety. Watching in silence as the storm consumed their enemy, no one spoke for a long time. Even the hum of the ship seemed quiet in the wake of such destruction. Finally, Reyes broke the silence. Transmit the message, he said. Mira turned to him. What message, sir? Reyes looked out at the glowing wreckage, his eyes cold but proud. The truth, he said. She nodded and activated the comm, across all channels, across every surviving Voran transmission line. One signal echoed through the storm, a human voice, calm and clear. We saw you coming. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy fell silent. No one had ever seen such power, such precision, such patience. Every empire, every species, every council that had once whispered that humanity was weak, now understood the truth. Humans didn't just fight wars anymore. They built them, and when they fought, they didn't play for survival, they played for memory. As the last flashes of the storm faded, Vigilant Dawn drifted quietly among the wreckage. Its hull reflected the electric blue light of victory. And in that silence, Captain Reyes whispered, the galaxy wanted a monster. He looked at the burning horizon of the nebula. Now they've got one. The hunters become the hunted. The storm had ended. Only silence remained, broken by the slow drift of burning wrecks and shattered steel. Once the Voran fleet had been a symbol of fear across the stars. Now it was gone, reduced to fragments glowing like embers in the void. The trap was complete, and the galaxy would never forget what happened here. Captain Reyes stood at the viewport of Vigilant Dawn, watching the aftermath unfold like a painting of ruin and triumph. Every flicker of fire outside was a story, a reminder of the arrogance that had come for humanity and found its own end instead. Mira approached quietly, her voice low but trembling with awe. It's over, sir, she said. Reyes didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed locked on the debris field. It's never over, Lieutenant, he said finally. It just changes shape. In the distance, Terran rescue shuttles moved through the storm. They collected escape pods, both human and alien. Even now, humanity refused to let others die needlessly. That was what made them different. They didn't destroy for pleasure, they destroyed for peace. And even amid victory, they remembered mercy. The galactic communication networks buzzed with chaos. Every major empire had seen the battle's final transmission. "We saw you coming," those 4 words spread faster than light itself. They weren't a threat, they were a warning. Every government, every council, every species that once whispered about human weakness suddenly fell silent, because they all realized what humanity had become. In the following weeks, fleets across distant systems began to move cautiously. Old alliances crumbled, new ones formed. Empires that had mocked humanity now sent envoys to negotiate. Others quietly withdrew their ships from Terran borders. No one wanted to test the species that had turned an entire star system into a weapon. On Earth, the news arrived before the survivors did. Across cities and colonies, people stopped to watch the broadcast. Images of vigilant dawn, of the glowing nebula, of the words that echoed across the stars. Children watched in awe. Veterans wept silently. For the first time in generations, humanity felt something greater than fear. They felt unity and pride. In the council halls of the alien empires, fear took new form. The same admirals who once plotted humanity's end now studied human battle reports. Every file, every movement, every weapon system was analyzed with dread. Because they all understood one simple truth. If the humans could plan this trap in silence, if they could outthink and outweight an empire like the Voran, then there was no telling what they would do next. Back on Vigilant Dawn, the crew worked quietly, repairing systems and restoring communications. Mira turned to Reyes. "We've received transmissions from the Alliance fleets, sir. They're requesting peace conferences." Reyes gave a faint smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "Peace is easy when your enemies are ash," he said softly. Then he added, "We'll attend their talks, but never forget why they want peace now." He walked to the command console and activated a recording. A message began transmitting through the Terran network. "Humanity will not seek war," Reyes said, his voice calm, "but we will never again wait to be hunted." His words spread across the system, echoing in every outpost and colony. They became a new Terran doctrine, not written in law but burned into memory. In the outer sectors, scavenger ships approached the remains of the Voran fleet. They found no survivors, only silence among the ruins. They discovered fragments of a recording from Admiral Tilarek's final moments. In it, his voice was weak but filled with realization. "They watched us," he said, "even when we thought we were hidden. They saw everything." That recording would later be played in every council meeting across the galaxy. And from that day forward, the Voran phrase for "to vanish completely" would be replaced with a new word: humaned. Weeks later, when the Terran fleet finally returned home, the stars themselves seemed to bow. The Vigilant Dawn led the procession, her hull scarred but proud. People lined orbital stations and colony towers just to glimpse the returning ships. They weren't just war heroes. They were the reason the galaxy still existed in balance. As Earth rotated slowly below, Captain Reyes stood one last time at the viewport. He watched the sun rise over the blue horizon, the light reflected across his face. Calm and unshaken, Mira approached him. "What now, sir?" she asked. Reyes smiled faintly. "Now," he said, "we watch." Because humanity had learned the oldest truth in the stars. The ones who watch first are the ones who survive. And across the endless sky among countless worlds, every empire that once called humanity prey now whispered the same words with quiet fear. "The hunters," they said, "have become the hunted."